Namaste, my friends. Welcome to Bhakti Yoga Conference, Grace in an Age of Distraction. My name is Happy Jack, the founder of Happy Jack Yoga University and a Master of Divinity student here at Harvard. And we're so honored to bring together prominent voices from the field of Bhakti to share their stories, to share their hearts, and give us insights. And that's precisely what is happening today when we invite our special esteemed speaker. We've got nearly 50 speakers in total, monks, scholars, yogis, thought leaders, musicians, scientists, and people who've been living this for, well, in today's case, more than half a century. Over 3,800 participants have registered. So grateful to have you here with us, and those who are here live with us as well. Appreciate your association. We may have time. We've got a lot to go through today, so we may have a little bit of time for Q&A. But I want to keep this efficient and get right to a bio. I'm going to spotlight our dear friend Shyamasundar Prabhu and just say a few words from his bio. This gives you a sense of who he is, because the first sentence of his bio says, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada changed the world. So his attention is on his teacher. When he came to America, Prabhupada, from India in 1965, few Westerners knew the deep spiritual truths behind ancient Vedic philosophy and culture. Within a decade, most humans on the planet had heard the Hare Krishna mantra. Shyamasundar Das, or Sam, was one of Bhaktivedanta Swami's earliest disciples, helping him shape the Krishna consciousness movement in the Haight-Ashbury district of San Francisco, in London with the Beatles, and then as the Swami's personal secretary. He traveled with Prabhupada in India, Russia, and all over the globe. In 3 volumes and nearly 600 photos, Chasing Rhinos with the Swami is an intimate account of Prabhupada's amazing adventures, described in loving detail the 7 years that Shyamasundar spent at the side of this perfect person. Such a gift. You know, there's a lot I could say, but I want to keep it short. But as is mentioned, I mean, this is a legendary devotee, one of a few that went to London, became friends with the Beatles, in particular George Harrison. This was in 1968, which is also the year that Prabhupada came here to Harvard to address the Harvard audience. And that's where we're having our final event, is in that same room, which will be very special. Some of you may be familiar with the Govindam recording that is played around the world in temple communities. Prabhu is a part of that. There's so much that could be said, but I want to give him the space to share his story. Today's session is called Chasing Rhinos with the Swami. My friends, if you are ready to welcome to the screen Shyamasundar Prabhu, throw your arms in the air and loudly chant Haribol. Haribol. We'll just bring you off of mute, Shyamasundar Prabhu, if you click the unmute button. And we will, is there a button there just to click unmute?
There we go. How's that?
Beautiful. Welcome. It's so beautiful to have your association.
Okay, are we ready?
We are ready. We're off.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Praschachadesattarine. Well, first of all, my deepest gratitude to Jack Bolkin and the Harvard Divinity School for luring me out of hibernation to speak once again about the inconceivable glories of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who appeared in the Western world 60 years ago to plant the ancient seed of Krishna consciousness and Bhakti Yoga in a world gone mad. Most of all, my very deepest gratitude to God, who likes the name Krishna, for giving me this long life, 83 years now, not only to broadcast the glories of Srila Prabhupada, but to observe and appreciate fully, an eyewitness to the worldwide success of his Krishna consciousness movement. To sense your shining faces out there today is to see the full flowering of that tiny seed Prabhupada planted those 6 decades ago. You too are seekers for the absolute truth and living proof that the search for the absolute, that which is eternal, unchanging, yet always fresh, will always prevail. Our subject matter for this lecture series is grace in an age of distraction. Distraction. Yes, I know we often feel that these high-speed internet, AI, space travel, social media, nuclear holocaust times are historically special and troubling. But as an old man and a student of history myself, I can see that every age, far back in time, most of human history can be termed as ages of distraction, right? What about the Depression era, the World Wars, the Civil Wars, the Black Plague? So I would submit that to be a human is to live in an age of distraction. And like you present-day seekers for the absolute truth, 60 years ago there was a sudden upwelling, a whole generation of mostly young people who tore down the walls around perceived reality, seeking truth and meaning. The answers from our parents, our culture, our science, our religions, so-called collective knowledge, it all seems so vague, unworkable, unsatisfying, incomplete, just so patently wrong. And it was an age of experiment, often with disastrous results. But some of us began to work out that, hey, I don't know anything, and no one around me seems to know what is actual reality. So maybe the ancients can tell us. Surely ancient sages have already figured this out. That makes sense. So we began to consult books, ancient writings, and sure, there was some great information there, great answers. But just like if you were trying to become a brain surgeon, you could read every book on brain surgery and still not be able to perform delicate brain surgery yourself. You need a living, experienced brain surgeon to show you how to do it. You need a master. So it began to sink in. To realize for yourself the absolute truth, you need to study with a master of the absolute truth, a living person, someone who has himself or herself realized the truth, a spiritual master. So we have looked at how every age really, at least for the past few thousand years, has been an age of distraction. But what about grace? How is grace possible in such times of uncertainty? Well, I would submit here, before we go on to chasing rhinos with the Swami, that finding a perfect spiritual master is the ultimate meaning of grace. The spiritual master is God's gracious gift to us, his most amazing grace, and our only deliverance in ages of chaos and distraction. So Bhaktivedanta Swami came to us in the Haight-Ashbury district of San Francisco in 1967, the summer of love, at the perfect historical moment in time, bearing his ancient wisdom from India in our own language. He spoke to a new generation of young people seeking the wisdom of the ages. And into this perfect situation stepped the Swami, already 70 years old and born in the 19th century, with his glowing face and perfect answers to every question. A person, yes, a real person, displaying the physical and mental attributes of perfection. We were so naive and innocent. We had no idea who this guy was. We called him Swamiji. We had only a vague idea of what a Swami was. Weren't those the guys who walked on coals over in India and played flutes in front of swaying cobras or climbed up ropes into the clouds? But the Swami told us straight away, there is a definition. One who can control the tongue, one who can control the mind, one who can control the words, one who can control the belly, one who can control the generative organ. He is Swami, and he is allowed to create disciples all over the world. And then the Swami explained further what is a true, genuine, authentic spiritual master. And I'll quote a passage he said in a lecture. The path of spiritual realization is undoubtedly difficult. The Lord therefore advises us to approach a bona fide spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession from the Lord himself. No one can be a bona fide spiritual master without following the principle of disciplic succession. The Lord is the original spiritual master, and a person in the disciplic succession can convey the message of the Lord as it is to his disciple. No one can be spiritually realized by manufacturing his own process, as is the fashion of the foolish pretenders. Mental speculation or dry arguments cannot help lead one to the right path, nor by independent studies of books and of knowledge can one progress in spiritual life. One has to approach a bona fide spiritual master to receive the knowledge. So the Swami told us the name of his spiritual master, and his master's master, and his master's master's master, and so on back. Hundreds of names in a millennium's long line of masters going back 5,000 years, yes, to Krishna himself. We were deeply impressed by this. Bhaktivedanta Swami is the real deal. Did you ever meet a perfect person, a living person without error, totally pure, whose physical beauty and grace is constant, yet changing and ever attractive? Someone who knows everything, the living embodiment of all knowledge? The Swami glowed. He wove his spell over us, attracted us like iron filings to a magnet, and you couldn't keep your eyes from his physical beauty. And he knew everything, and he knew you. Your every thought was clear to him, and he was there to be your friend and guide forever. He said, Krishna is God. This is what he looks like. Here is his address. These are his activities, and here are his words. This ancient Vedic description of God, compared to all other notions of God, is like comparing the Encyclopedia Britannica to a tiny brochure. And did we have fun? The Swami's mood is hilarious. As serious and grave as absolute truth can be, it's also the reservoir of delight and pleasure. And the Swami tickles our funny bones, and he is the living example how much fun is the life on board his magic sailing ship, chasing rhinos with the Swami. As some of you may know, over the past 10 years now, I've been writing and producing a 3-volume memoir. There they are, volumes 1, 2, and 3. Of the 7 years that I passed at Prabhupada's feet and by his side, at first as his trusted lieutenant, and then for years as his personal secretary. And I call it chasing rhinos with the Swami. Why? Because this was the Swami's famous marching order for our little army. Quote, "We should always be enthusiastic to try for capturing the rhinoceros. That way, if we fail, everyone will say, 'Never mind, nobody can catch a rhinoceros anyway.' And if we succeed, then everyone will say, 'Just see what a wonderful thing they have done.' Dare to pursue the biggest goals for Krishna." And this was the spirit, the subject, and object of all of our activities. Chasing the rhino became the hue and cry of the first generation of the Swami's starstruck disciples. I'll just read a few lines from Volume 1, Chasing Rhinos, the early days in San Francisco. "I can't take my eyes off the Swami. He's just so beautiful. I mean, physically beautiful. He says another name for Krishna is Bhagavan. Bhagavan means he has all the opulences in full. There are 6 opulences. Krishna is all powerful. He knows everything. He's got all knowledge. He's got all wealth because everything belongs to him. He's all famous. Everyone knows him. He's all beautiful, and he's all renounced. And that means he is the all attractive. Krishna means all attractive." I get it. I get it. Because Bhaktivedanta Swami is the most attractive person I've ever seen. And this guy only works for Krishna. He's the messenger. So how beautiful Krishna must be. The Swami's physical beauty seems ever fresh and energetic, fueled by transcendental energy, like the fluid grace you see in youth. We said, "Okay, Swamiji, you've convinced us that Krishna is God, and we are his tiny servants, bound to him in what you're calling Bhakti Yoga or devotional service. But now, what do we do?" And Prabhupada said 2 things. You become Krishna conscious yourself, and you spread Krishna consciousness. That's it. Moreover, you become Krishna conscious by spreading Krishna consciousness. So this is the secret. 2 for the price of 1. Chase the rhino for Krishna, become Krishna conscious. This is Bhakti Yoga. It's very simple. Well, in those early days, we had no models. There was no history, no maps, no books of instruction. There were no well-marked trails. We had only the Swami, his words, his personal example, how he had chased the rhino to America as an old man with no money or friends or no plan, really, under Krishna's protection. The Swami never minced words. Each day he said to us, "What I am telling you will save humankind. You must help me change the world." So these books, Chasing Rhinos with the Swami, you can say that they are the eyewitness record of how in those early days Srila Prabhupada gathered his children into a small but mighty force, which has in fact actually changed the world. I just saw a notice in one of the Krishna newsletters talking about our new center in Antarctica. Have you heard about that one? Apparently, at an Indian science base there, exploration base, there's a group of scientists have developed a Bhagavad Gita class. So this was the Swami's style. Chasing the rhino is risky high adventure. That's one thing, the theme of our activity. But the activity itself should be practical. Bhaktivedanta Swami harnessed what little practical talent or skills that we had and personally fit them into the larger task. My first job in devotional service was temple bookkeeper. He made you feel important, that your tiny service had huge consequences, and most of all, that Krishna consciousness was fun. We were having a ball. Right off, one of the things I liked best about the Swami, he made you laugh. He was always calm and content, sure, but more than that, he was jolly. Even discussing various serious subjects, there was often the play of a smile around his lips, a chuckle to make a point, chuckle by chuckle building our inner glee. Then suddenly the guffaw, the quick delight. And when he's really surprised by the overtly absurd, a full rounded belly laugh trembles his body, tears streaming from his tight squinted eyes. You'll feel yourself transcendently joyful, he said, in spite of your present physical body. Just like if you eat, you'll know yourself that you are eating. You are feeling strength. You are getting enlightened. Similarly, if you take this process of Krishna consciousness, in spite of your present physical body, you'll know that you are having something transcendental. That feeling will come with you. Krishna is always jolly. If you join his society, you will also become jolly. So little by little, the Swami gave us someone to love, something to do, and something to hope for. The secrets to happiness and successful life. And we were hooked. The early San Francisco temple took off like a rocket. Dozens of new devotees running off to other cities and countries, starting new centers in rapid succession. In September 1968, I took off with my wife and 3-month-old child and 4 other devotees to London, which was becoming the new happening place on the planet. And by Christmas, just 3 months later, we were having kirtan with the Beatles, at that time the most famous 4 people in the world. So thus began my lifelong relationship with George Harrison. Our little London group of devotees became rock stars, recording 2 hit records on the Apple label. We lived 3 months out at John Lennon's place in Berkshire. We lived 6 months with George at his castle in Oxfordshire, where he composed and recorded his All Things Must Pass album and that great song, My Sweet Lord. And with these guys, we spread Krishna consciousness all over the world very fast. So these stories, the early days in San Francisco and London, are in volume 1 of Chasing Rhinos. Volume 2 begins with India. In 1970, when we first went to India, there were very few Indians in the US. And India, to us, was this faraway, mythical, exotic place. And Srila Prabhupada was really the first Indian person most of us had ever met. And it's maybe difficult for you to understand this, but by 1970, the worship of Krishna in India was very nearly extinct. Srila Prabhupada's plan all along was to take some Western devotees to India to demonstrate to his countrymen that they have neglected their own spiritual heritage And that, look here, these Westerners are taking it up. So in September 1970, Prabhupada took 20 of us, American and European disciples, to India. Well, of course, as soon as we got off the plane, we ran around Bombay looking for Krishna temples, and we couldn't find any. There was no evidence of Krishna. Where was Krishna? All over India we looked. There were no visible sign of Krishna, or very little. Hmm. We were Prabhupada's dancing white elephants, and he took us around the country at breakneck speed, and we became overnight national sensations. Like a wildfire, we swept across India, dropping off a few devotees in each town to open temples. We were headline news every day across India. Bombay, Amritsar, Surat, Allahabad, Benares, Gorakhpur, New Delhi, Vrindavan, Madras, Visakhapatnam, Calcutta, Mayapur. By train, plane, and cars, we traveled the nation at breakneck speed. We were Prabhupada's close family in this strange land, all living together in close quarters. We were mesmerized as Prabhupada spoke on those golden mornings over the raucous cawing of crows outside, cooing of pigeons in the courtyard. Changing expressions moved across his golden face, like the play of cumulus and sunlight over a varied landscape. One moment he was from our world, and the next from a world we couldn't penetrate, the self-contained knower of everything. Then suddenly he's tossing a ball to you in a friendly game of verbal catch. Maybe a fastball to see if you can catch it. He might break from describing Krishna's vast cosmic design to a real concern for your upset stomach. Just try a little bicarbonate of soda, one spoonful in water, he would say. None of us had ever seen such depth of personality. Prabhupada's vitality seemed to increase each day. He was constantly talking to people. We never saw him sleep, and he ate very little, even though he encouraged us to eat huge amounts. We were so excited, so full of expectation of great things ahead. Of course, there were down periods when we all felt it was too difficult living like this. I just want to go back to where there are dishwashing machines and hot water. But living this close to Prabhupada just made everything easy and light. So, in a very short time, Prabhupada put Krishna on the map in India. And the stories in Volume 2 will amaze you. I'll pass describing more of those. Um, but just to reinforce this idea, in September 1970, when we first arrived in Bombay and couldn't find a Krishna temple, now, only 55 years later, in India, there are thousands of Krishna temples now. Krishna bicycle shops, Krishna ice cream parlors, Krishna everything. Krishna consciousness movement has become the biggest and most progressive spiritual movement in India today. All in my lifetime, due to Srila Prabhupada. I don't know, you might have seen recent newscasts and YouTube videos where the Prime Minister Modi has many times gone on national TV to speak about Prabhupada and ISKCON. He's very fond of the Krishna movement, the president of the nation. In fact, I even saw a YouTube video where a few months ago, Modi dove down with a scuba diving outfit into the bay off Dwarka, 100 feet down in the ocean, to lay a peacock feather on an ancient Krishna statue down there. So, comparing to our arrival in India in 1970, this is really a mind-blowing development to me. So in June 1971 in Bombay, Srila Prabhupada appointed me as his personal secretary. This was a new post, really. Srila Prabhupada's movement was now global. And in those days, there were no communications, global communications. There was no internet, no cell phones. Communications relied on letters. So being Srila Prabhupada's secretary was a huge new responsibility. The movement was growing by leaps and bounds. There were dozens of letters a day. So I typed letters, made travel arrangements, looked out for all of his daily activities, and above all, recorded everything Srila Prabhupada said. We had, in those days, the first days of the tape recorder. First, the big 6-inch reel Ewer tape recorders. Then we finally got some transistor tape recorders about this big. And Prabhupada, from the beginning, insisted that everything he said, all his letters even, should be typed in with carbon paper and triplicate, and everything he said should be recorded. So as a result of this, you'll find today in the Bhaktivedanta archives almost a complete record of everything Prabhupada said from the early 60s onward. It's an amazing thing to find out everything Prabhupada said had been recorded. So, Prabhupada had just had unrelenting energy. Sometimes he had so many balls up in the air, it was hard to keep up with him. And the only thing, when I look back, the only thing that really made it all possible was the laughter. Prabhupada kept me laughing day and night. Sometimes I think now in later years, Srila Prabhupada appointed me his secretary so he could have a pirate playmate. He was, without exception, happy and jolly. Where do you see this in any other person? And by his happy example, we could understand that Krishna is kind of a joker. He keeps it light. Krishna is a wonderful playmate. One time I asked Prabhupada, Prabhupada, what does laughter mean? And Prabhupada said, laughter is the difference between what happens and what you expect will happen. In other words, laughter is a constant, wonderful surprise. So over the next 2 years, being Prabhupada's personal secretary was the wildest and most exciting adventure of my life. The first thing we did was go to Russia. Prabhupada wanted to go to Russia. For years he'd been trying, and we all thought, Russia? You have to imagine in those days it was a lot worse even than now. There was the Iron Curtain divided the Soviet Empire and the West, and there was Iron Curtain between, and you couldn't go on either side of that Iron Curtain without getting into big trouble. But somehow or other, I got us a visa for 5 days to go to Moscow under the pretense that we were meeting a professor there. And they even gave visas to myself and the other American devotee who was his servant, Aravinda. 2 American boys, we got visas too. Don't know how it happened. But in those 5 days, we only had 5 days there. We didn't know anyone. In those 5 days, I met one boy, Russian boy on the street, brought him to Prabhupada. And in 3 days' time, Srila Prabhupada turned this boy into a pure Vaishnava devotee. It was the most magic expression of Prabhupada's power that I ever saw. And this one boy behind the Iron Curtain, underground, went on to spread Krishna consciousness throughout Russia. The first day that we arrived in Moscow, there was a military parade outside our window in Red Square. Thousands of soldiers marching by, big guns and rockets. And Prabhupada watched the whole parade. And he turned around, there was a tear in his eye, and he said, you cannot rule a people by fear. He said, within 20 years, all of this will be gone. And almost exactly 20 years later, the Soviet Empire fell. So in this volume two, you will read about Srila Prabhupada's great adventures in India, uh, and then his first great global push to Russia, USA, Europe, around the world. Amazing stories of the highest Krishna magic in action. Anyway, those are all in volume two. I finished volume three a couple of years back, and it's sort of the grand opus, stories from my adventures as Prabhupada's secretary, all over America, Mexico, the UK, Scotland, Paris, Switzerland, India, Africa, Australia, Hong Kong, Japan. This is 1972 and 73. This was perhaps the busiest and most intense year of Srila Prabhupada's amazing, unstoppable mission to spread Krishna consciousness all over the globe. I won't take more time reading passages, uh, so we leave some time for questions. Uh, but these books are written as adventure novels. As you follow the characters from one thrilling, suspenseful adventure to the next, and together they represent my mature effort to glorify the most amazing personality to grace the 20th century, Srila Prabhupada. At the end of volume three, I've included a 50-page section I call Afterwards, a summary of my lifetime adventure with Prabhupada. I'll just read one paragraph that sort of sums up my overriding optimism. You are the master gardener, Srila Prabhupada. You planted a potent acorn on fertile ground, and your Krishna consciousness society burst out and grew quickly in an open space. Then, no longer the exploding sapling, it struggled to overcome its competition, endure some nasty seasons. The trunk grew thicker, though, season by season, and the branches reached up, and at last your ISKCON has emerged to the sun above all others, a mighty oak, standing alone to nourish and guide the world. Prabhupada, you brought the dying spark of Sanatana Dharma to this dried-out husk of Kali Yuga, and created a wonderful, unstoppable forest fire in high winds. As the disenchantment and futility of material striving increase in this difficult age, the more intelligent in human society will certainly see Krishna consciousness as the only source of pure truth left. With so much momentum, your mission cannot fail. So, this is kind of the conclusion of today's talk. And the realization of my lifetime is this: to be granted the opportunity to meet and to serve a genuine spiritual master is the only true possible in an age of chaos and distraction. The spiritual master is God's gracious gift to us, his most amazing grace, our only deliverance from this material world. 60 years ago, there was one genuine, pure Vaishnava spiritual master, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And now, in my lifetime, I'm very happy to report there are now over 100 Krishna conscious initiating gurus or spiritual masters in this amazing world of hope that Srila Prabhupada has created. If one master creates 100 masters in 60 years, at the present rate of replication, over the next 60 years, these 100 gurus will produce 10,000 pure spiritual masters. How can we not have hope? All glories to my beloved spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. I'm so happy to be with you, angelic and chosen souls here today across the universe. I feel surely we've all been together for many lifetimes. From Zoom meetings like Jack has put together, like this, and to temples in major cities around the world, thousands of individuals and groups like yours, slowly, person by person, the tide of Krishna consciousness is turning. I just feel so much hope. If you look back through history, it's pretty easy to see that only love of God, love for the Supreme Person, can bring consensus and certainty to any civilization. So thank you very much, Jack. I should mention that my books are available. These three books in singles, or this hardbound set of three books as a set, 3-volume set, all available by going to chasingrhinos.com.
Oh my goodness. I love that, Shyamasundar Prabhu. Thank you so much for the gift. Is there a couple more words you wanted to say? Are you?
No, I'm pretty,
Yeah.
whoop, I just lost it there for a second. Where are you?
That is such a gift. I mean, I'm so happy. We're so happy to know that these stories and these leelas and these adventures are being captured in your Chasing Rhinos with a Swami volume. And I ordered one of them, the first volume, a couple years ago, and it showed up in a beautiful envelope. I could see it was handwritten by yourself, and you signed it. So I feel like that was so thoughtful. I don't know if that still happens to everyone, but I just thought that was such a beautiful touch. And thank you for sharing the gift. I could see the students here so engaged and taking notes and sharing beautiful messages in the chat. And so we'll open up to Q&A. I see we have some hands up. I'd like to start with one question. You really shared about, your drive and your kind of this calling to to share Krishna consciousness. Could you share a little bit about what you saw in yourself for a personal transformation? How did the practice of Bhakti Yoga, how did the association of a great perfect being like Prabhupada, how did that impact you? Was there a transformation of a guy who was out of control to, becoming more sattvic, or what did you notice in yourself?
Well, when you're in the midst of a whirlwind, you don't have much time for self-reflection. It all just happens so fast that we were thrown into this new world of devotional service or bhakti yoga, which means, 100% of your energies are spent in spreading Krishna consciousness. And of course, along with that, because it comes, like I was talking about many times, the laughter and joy of it all,
Mm.
because you don't really care if you're successful or not. You're chasing the rhinos, but if you fail, it doesn't matter. Krishna is taking all responsibility because you're doing it for him. It's all sacrifice. So suddenly you're in a world without limits, and it's so pleasurable in this kind of energy, always going, trying to please Krishna. Please your spiritual master is the first thing. Automatically, if you can please your spiritual master, you please Krishna. I mean, he's the one who's going to introduce you to Krishna. So, whenever seeing Prabhupada pleased by our activities was the most joyous experience of my lifetime up till then. So there was anything before meeting Prabhupada was discarded as a waste of time, basically. And my life since Srila Prabhupada has been, I mean, I've done more probably in my 83 years than most people do in 15 lifetimes. So I'm totally content now. I'm very happy. Uh,
Beautiful. That I
that's
love that. I feel like it's such a refreshing perspective, because I think many of us in the West or in the material world, we're chasing goals for ourselves or maybe for our family or for some greater good. But when it's pure doing it all for Krishna, doing it all for God, and then operating from a place of not having any limits and not worrying if it fails, if it succeed, if it fails. I mean, Prabhupada had a very beautiful quote when he arrived first to Boston here. Something along the lines of, Krishna, make me a success or as a failure as you like. He was completely surrendered, but he was just giving himself fully, and we see that you've done the same. It's such a gift.
I don't regard myself as any kind of sage or advanced devotee. Life is always a struggle at every step. I mean, we have Krishna with us, and it helps, of course. But having Krishna consciousness in our lives, whatever kind of life we have, is going to be very beneficial, whatever it is. And it, I just sometimes I feel so sorry for people that they don't have an understanding of God, that God and their relationship to God, which makes life a complete picture. Uh, how can people live without knowing who they are and how they got there and where they're going? So this kind of absolute knowledge is a very rare thing to have. And for us to have access to it so easily is the most beneficial thing we could have gotten in any lifetime. And I keep going back to this need to have a spiritual master.
Mhm.
If you don't have that, it's going to be a big struggle always. Once you have a spiritual master, I mean, I asked Vaisheshika once, I said, Vaisheshika, how can Krishna know that I'm here even, like a little bug? If you look around in every square foot of ground, there's millions of living entities. How could he know in this vast whole cosmic uh, realm full of living entities that I even exist or that I'm special in any way? And Vaisheshika thought for a moment and he says, it's not what you know, it's who you know. In other words, your spiritual master is right there next to Krishna. He's the one who's going to get you in the door.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. I must say, there's more virtual hands up than has ever been the case on any of our conference series so far. So that's a sign to people, are seeking to learn from you. But let's start here. We'll get Sarah and George on deck first, following the lineup. Sarah and George, Kent, UK,
Sarah
welcome.
George, Sarah
Hi,
George,
Hare
Hi there,
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
so much. You're a wonderful storyteller. I love listening to you. My question is about money and spirituality. So, for example, I know many yogis who they take a qualification, and those that are more spiritually inclined then feel almost reluctant to earn very much money from their yoga business, and they often end up going donation based or charging really low prices, and then they find that they can't get it going. And then on the other hand, you were exposed to the Beatles with a huge amount of wealth, and as you stayed in their houses, you obviously know that. And George Harrison donated what is now Bhaktivedanta Manor in the UK, which we've both visited a couple of times. What are your thoughts, and what did Prabhupada say to perhaps George Harrison about making money and spirituality and how they fit together? That he didn't need to become an ascetic and go and live in a cave and just stop singing in the Beatles. What was the advice there?
Can you nail that down to a small question?
Okay. Um, can you give permission for the yogis and other people who are householders, have a family, that it's okay to make money, and how that fits together with spirituality?
Can you be spiritual and have money?
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Look at George Harrison. You know, there's so much variety in all of Krishna's kingdom. Certainly, there is a place for devotees to make as much money as possible, as long as it's given over to Krishna, or a good percentage of it to spreading Krishna consciousness. I myself went out to become a businessman. I had no ideas or desire to do business, but in 1972, I was in Hyderabad with Srila Prabhupada. And one of the hosts at a house there in Hyderabad invited Prabhupada to speak in his home. And these people, I went over to check out the premises beforehand, and these people had just discovered a ruby mine. And they had a big pile of rubies on a table, and I walked by, whoa, what are these are rubies. We don't know what to do with them. Maybe you could help us. So I took a handful
Okay.
to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, these people have this ruby mine, and they want me to get involved in that. And he says, let me think about this. Come back in the morning. So I came in the morning. He had this big handful of rubies in his hand, and he says, here are your rubies. And I held my hands out like this, and he dropped them. And they hit my hand and went all over the floor. So I'm around there picking them all up, and Prabhupada is laying back on his cover there, laughing hilariously. And he said, you take this up. Krishna is giving you this opportunity. Let us see what happens. In other words, get your material fantasies out of the way. So I went on and became one of the world's foremost prospectors and mine developers for precious stones all over the world. And every time I would get something really big going, Krishna would take it away some way or other. Lawyers, governments, partners, all kinds of stuff. Every time I got millions of dollars together, it collapsed. So I came to understand that Krishna, he wants us to get rid of whatever material fantasies we have so we can go back to Godhead. So he gives us the opportunity. And if we utilize them correctly, I suppose, he'll let you keep them. But I didn't do it that way, I guess. So, everybody's different. The only advice I could give to, if you have to do business. This is in all of Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada himself was a businessman, but he also failed many times in businesses. And he always used to say to me, Krishna, sometimes to show a special favor will take away your business. Because of that, his business failures, he went on to become who he is. Mm.
Yeah.
So keep trying. If you have some business, utilize it. If Krishna wants you to have it, he'll make it very big. But in all of Prabhupada's books, he says that the devotees should be happy with whatever they have. Mm.
Yeah.
Myself, my own income now, after all those wild adventures with some of the most biggest gem mines in the world I discovered, I have nothing left from that. And I don't care. I make my living selling books now. But I have everything. I have my cabin in the forest. I have my devoted friends. Nothing is better.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Wow.
Thank you for the advice.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Beautiful question, Sarah and George. We're sending our love, gratitude, Kent, UK.
So, Hare Krishna.
Beautiful. All right, let's bring Jess Jayanti Dasi on. Welcome, Jess. Where are you calling in from?
Hare Krishna Prabhus.
Hare Krishna.
I'm calling in Toronto, Canada, and
That's right. I'm from Muskoka. I'm just north of you.
yes, I think we actually met one time at the yoga conference in Toronto, I think last year.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it was nice. It was like a very brief, but absolutely, I just wanted to offer my deepest respects and thanks for kind of bringing Srila Prabhupada to life. Because sometimes we hear lectures and it's like, he said this and do this and we have to do this, but it's this, you have interwoven these touching stories along with all of his teachings and kind of his personality. That yes, it was larger than life, but also it was that humility, that
Mm,
so many of us, we forget. We always think
mm.
that he did this and all these massive accomplishments, but these personal kind of letters and everything else. I do have a question. I do want to be mindful of time because I do see a few other hands up. So I will try to be as quick as possible. What is your hope that you wish to see how ISKCON grows in the future?
Well, this is all just Krishna's plan. I have no way to see anything in the future like that. But as I was just talking about, one master became 100 masters in my lifetime. And in the next 60 years, at that rate of multiplication, there would be 10,000 masters. I mean, how can it not become one of the world's great uh, spiritual forces, Krishna consciousness? I don't see any possibility that the truth will not expand and expand and expand right now, especially as times get so tough for a lot of people. It seems to me almost like a recircling now of the same spirit that was in the air in the 60s. Not revolution, but change. The young people in this world are just pissed off with the way things are. They want to find out what is the true meaning of life. I think with this level of inquisitiveness in the world, it's just going to grow and grow and grow and grow. That's all I can predict. Hmm.
That's awesome. It's so
And
beautiful.
I think probably the main symptom of that growth will be how much devotees are laughing. Krishna consciousness at its root is fun.
Yeah,
And it should always, that's how you're going to measure your progress, is how much you're laughing.
I love that. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you, Jess, Jayanti Dasi. Let's send our love, high vibes, Toronto, Canada in the house. Beautiful, beautiful question to share. Let's see if we can squeeze a couple more in here. We got a few minutes. Dino and Leslie. Leslie,
Dino
on
and
deck.
Leslie.
Welcome.
Hello.
Where are you calling in from?
Leslie's from my hometown of Salem, Oregon.
Wow.
There's Dino. Hey, Dino.
Prabhu. Thank you so much, Jack. Thank you, Shyamasundar Prabhu, and all glories to the assembled devotees. You kind of just answered my question in a way, Shyamasundar. You said, at 83, you're just radiating hope. You are full of enthusiasm, which means to have God within and showing it. And the title of this conference, Grace in the Age of Distraction. I feel like you just handed us the key, that it's laughter and joy. And this quote that you gave, that laughter is the difference between what happens and what you expected to happen. I wonder if you could touch on that a little bit more, because I reached for my Bhagavad Gita, and I remember you telling me, like, when we met Swamiji, we didn't even have Bhagavad Gita. We just had the Swami. But I turned it open to chapter 10, verse 9, and that this is what we're doing right now. We're talking about Krishna in association, and it's bringing satisfaction and bliss. So, like, how do we remember this? Like, this hope of maintaining laughter and joy.
Well, Radha Swami is always reminding me of this. He's always saying, don't assume anything. Because as soon as you assume something, it's going to be different. And so I suppose that's what laughter is in a way. It's surprise and being open to the present, living in the present, just seeing how Krishna is unraveling and unrolling reality around you should always be a surprise. You don't assume anything. It should always be a surprise. Oh, that's the way you want to do it, Krishna. Okay, we'll do it that way.
So we can only laugh.
uh,
So it's like we can only laugh
well,
in a
you
way.
can only laugh.
It's all
Prabhupada,
mercy.
there's probably 50 or 80 pictures of me with me standing around Prabhupada somewhere in the background or whatever. And in almost all of them, the great majority of them, I'm laughing. And everybody else is.
Okay, I'm going to take that cue from you. I can be so serious.
Because Prabhupada was a joker. He was the funniest person I ever met in my life.
When Krishna smiles, you know, after Arjuna has his meltdown, right? He turns to him
Yeah.
and so that's where it is. And
Mm.
I'm just
I've
taking
been looking for a picture anywhere of Krishna laughing, and I can't find one. I don't know why there are no pictures of Krishna laughing. Sometimes you see him sort of smiling.
Mm.
I don't know why that is. I wish there was an artist out there who could render Krishna's laugh.
I love that. Such a beautiful question, beautiful response. I'm personally going to take that message away. More joy, more laughter, more fun. Let's spread the love in this way. Dino and Leslie, Salem, Oregon, sending all of our love, high vibes out to you. West Coast as well. Beautiful. What do you think, Shyamasundar Prabhu? We're complete on time. I really want to respect your time. We have another question or two here.
Okay, one
You
more,
have a
whatever
moment?
you want.
Let's
I'm ready. I'm
sneak it.
still here.
This is a rare gift for your association. So let's get Fismo on. Where are you calling in from, my friend?
I'm calling from London. My name is Robert.
From London.
Shyamasundar. It's
Wow.
so very nice to see you. Is the background sound bad? I'm in
It's
a
okay.
cafe.
It's okay. Just talk loud and clear.
Oh yeah, you're fine.
Okay. Shyamasundar, you said something during your talk, and you said, we've been together for many years. Can you hear me?
Many lifetimes.
Many lifetimes. And that really strikes a chord with me. May I tell you a small story that involves you about that?
Feel free.
So I was in New York maybe 5 years ago. My wife and I were at the Rath Yatra in New York, and we were getting ready to go to the Bhakti Center, and I was in the hotel room, and I happened to have been reading your book. It was the second of the Chasing the Rhinos book, and I got to the part in the book where you were in a car, big Chevrolet with Prabhupada and a bunch of other devotees, and you came up to this really rickety old wooden bridge. You were visiting someone, and the car stopped, and Prabhupada said for everyone to get out of the car except for you, and you were in the driver's seat. And he said, "Okay, hit it," and you hit the gas and flew over the wooden bridge. And I got the biggest kick out of that story. I was laughing and laughing. So anyway, my wife comes in and she says, "Okay, let's go. We're going to go out to the Bhakti Center." So we get in the elevator, and let me caveat by saying I had never met you. My only knowledge of you was the fact that I'd read these books. You could have been anywhere in the world. I had no idea where you were. I'd never seen you. So we're in the elevator, and I'm actually telling this story to my wife and our friend Shamala Priya. My wife's name is Anita. I'm telling you the story. All three of us are laughing. The elevator door opens. I'm facing out, and I look out, and you are standing right in front of me as I'm telling this story. And I'm going humming. And I told you that story at that moment, and you kind of had a little chuckle, and you said, we've been together for many lifetimes.
Good
And
story.
it's good, but I have to say that although a very small story, what are the chances of that happening? And that simple meeting has such a big impact on me. Krishna really arranged for us to meet
Yeah.
at that moment. It was just a magical moment.
Yeah. Well, it was a giant surprise and full of humor. Very funny.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Amazing. Well,
All
thank you.
right.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
beautiful story and share. We're sending our love, high vibes over to London. Awesome. Thank you, Prabhu. And let's we squeeze one more in here. Celia, who's out in the great nature. Celia, where are you calling in from?
I'm calling from Talent, Oregon.
Oh,
From where?
Talent, Oregon.
Talent.
Talent, Oregon. I'm actually a good friend of Leslie's.
Talent, Oregon?
Yes, it's right outside of Ashland on the
Right. I know where it is. You had a big fire there.
Yes, yes, indeed. Prabhu, I am so inspired by your affiliation with Srila Prabhupada and what you've done with it. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And Jack, I also want to thank you for putting on this amazing, enlightening conference. I don't want to take your time. I just want to show you what we've been doing here in Talent. My late husband and built a stage for kirtan. Here it is.
Oh, wow. God, see how it's spreading all over the world? God.
Yeah.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Any,
Oh, that's
anything
great.
can happen. With Prabhupada, anything can happen. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much. Jai.
Amazing.
All
Wow.
glories to your
All
service.
glories to Prabhupada.
Thank you. Thank you, Celia. We're sending our
See how
love.
it's spreading?
It's around the world.
How
Amazing.
how
We're
can you
sending
not
our
have
love out
vast
there.
hope? God. Huh.
Shyamasundar Prabhu, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. This is such a gift, such rare association to be with a legend, truly a legend on this bhakti path like yourself. Parting words, what would you leave us with? You know, we got thousands are going to be seeing this recording. You know, many of us here live, we're much newer on our bhakti journey, but something has hooked us. Something has caught our attention, and we're all at different stages. But, you know, you've talked about the laughter. That's the biggest lesson I'm taking. But maybe parting words, what would you leave us with as we continue forward on this journey?
Oh my goodness. Just be happy. Feel the joy. Chant Hare Krishna. Think about Krishna as much as you can. I mean, it's very hard to connect everything you do in your life with Krishna, but he will gradually reveal himself the more you think about him, the more you act in your consciousness, put Krishna in your consciousness, the more he will open the door for you to remember him more and more. And so the happiness, that will be the measure of your progress, is how happy and joyful you are.
I love that. Such words of wisdom. Well, my friend, thank you so much for your time, Prabhu. Friends, thank you all for being here with us.
Thank you, guys. Hare Krishna.
Wishing you all an amazing rest of the day, and we will see you again soon.
Okay,
Hare Krishna.
Jack. Thank you
Hare
so much,
Krishna.
everybody.
Hare
Krishna.
Thanks,
Krishna.
Prabhupada.
Hare
Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hey.